Greetings, my name is JC,
And I'm Ian.
and this is the Gamer's Gaiden. In this week's episode, we're going to be talking about the brand new game, Wolfenstein Youngblood, and our
Brand
impressions and
new
what we
game.
think about the game and everything. Yeah.
We thought we'd try something a little bit different. This is a big deal. This is episode 25.
Yep.
Thank
And
you
this
to
game-
everybody who's been with us from episode number 1.
Yeah. If you're new and you like what you see, subscribe. So over the last week, we've been playing this game. It came out on Friday, so we kind of played a lot of it over the weekend.
Yes.
And the game itself is about two sisters who are from liberated America in an alternate timeline where the bad guys of World War II won. And
Now, these are not just two sisters. These are the daughters of legendary war hero B.J. Blazkowicz.
Ian is much more adverse in the lore of the Wolfenstein games because this is the first one that I've played other than the original one. I was mainly interested in it because of the multiplayer aspect, and I'm like, hey, let's play this. And so we played a bunch of it together. But the two.
Anyways, you're the two sisters of the Blazkowicz sisters,
Mhm.
and your father goes missing.
Yep.
And you decide to take it upon yourselves to go to occupied France and try to find him.
And so the story starts up from there. And what were your first impressions of the game, Ian?
I was I was pretty excited. I mean, the dialogue early on is weak.
Yeah, it's
I
a little
mean-
cringy in parts.
And the dialogue throughout is a little weak. But I mean, at the same time, I'm not necessarily playing a Wolfenstein game because I'm expecting a big epic story.
Mm-hmm.
I'm playing a Wolfenstein game because I want action.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I mean, it's like Doom.
Yep.
You know, you're not picking up Doom because
Of the story.
yeah,
Mm-hmm.
I don't really.
It's one of those things that you don't care about the story.
Yeah, I'm not concerned about the choices and consequences of Doom guy's actions. Same with this. I mean, I wasn't so much concerned about the story necessarily. I mean, the overall story. Yes, that I was interested for sure in that.
Yeah.
But and I was interested to see the portrayal of the daughters.
Mm-hmm.
Because the
'Cause-
daughters Blazkowicz. Because I mean, the BJ's a very interesting character, or at least the Machine Games series have made him a very interesting character.
Right.
So I like everything that the Machine Games series has done so far with the storyline through the New Order, even the Old Blood,
Mhm.
and New Colossus. So I was kind of excited to see how they would continue the story on and see
Right.
what the daughters would be like.
Mhm.
And yeah, I did find it. It's a little weak early on. Personally, that's kind of what I found. Though I did find it funny, because like they made me laugh.
Yeah.
They're big dorks.
Yeah, they're actually 18, but they kind of act like early teens or late tweens or something like that, just with their personality and stuff like that. They're very like gung-ho, like don't really know or understand what they're doing.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
I kind of liked that. I liked that they obviously had a very strange upbringing.
Mm-hmm.
I kind of, in my head, it sort of reminds me a little bit of like John Connor and what his upbringing would have been like at the end of Terminator 2.
Oh, okay.
Like that, just like
Right.
your parents are taking you out to the desert and you're just gonna learn like weapon skills and stuff for the next 15 years of your life, and then you're just gonna be some odd individual.
Right.
So I mean, that kind of stuff to me, I could sort of justify their awkwardness
Okay.
because I feel like they hadn't been socialized,
Mhm.
and like when you finally get your hands on and like they give you the reins and you can go forward, it was kind of nice. I mean, when I first played it, we actually played it together, so our first impressions really were together.
Mm-hmm.
So while JC was trying to figure out some of the control stuff, I I went straight ahead,
Yeah.
and I even missed one of the I guess like tip prompts.
Yeah.
They have little I guess laptops almost.
Yeah, they're little like 80s laptops.
Yeah, kind of hefty,
Mm-hmm.
and you can they give you little hints and tips.
Mm-hmm.
I blew right past it because I saw a dude up ahead, and I'm like, I'm gonna shoot him. I think that was my words to JC. I'm like, there's a dude, I'm gonna shoot him, and he's just like, hey, you weren't even close. Like we were not anywhere
No,
close to one another.
I couldn't hear anything other than like your chat
And
because I
I
was having some problems.
I pulled the trigger and just like head explode, blood on the glass in front, and I'm like, cool, I'll keep playing this. So really, that was my first impressions. I'm like, well,
Yeah.
these guys are dorks because you get kind of a cute little scene with their first like kill, I guess. Like
The one of them, yeah.
They kill a person together,
hmm
and that was the first time that they'd really seen any like actual combat.
Yeah, because they're very green. They.
Incredibly green.
hmm
And yeah, so there's a kind of a funny moment there, and then you press forward, and I'm like, dude, boom. And then, like you said, you had a bit of an audio bug, so we actually had to reload and do the section over again.
Yeah, I couldn't hear any of the game's audio or any of the sound effects.
So when we did it a second time, I did what I was supposed to do because you're supposed to do like a melee takedown. And
Yeah.
anyways, that was my first impressions of the game. I was like, this is sweet. I love that the blood like splatter from the shot. It was very like visceral. You had that blood spray.
Right.
It was totally unrealistic because his head exploded, but like blood on the glass in front of him. It couldn't have been more perfect. It was just like, that's exactly, as soon as I did that and I saw that, I'm like, this is what I wanted.
Yeah.
This is what I wanted from this experience.
This is how you want to kill bad guys.
I wanted just like a kind of like a gory shooter. I mean, you don't really see that too much.
No, the Bethesda games is really just the example, the prime example where like the gore is in your face and like they don't hold back.
I mean, you have that with the Doom series. The gore is over the top, but I mean, again, those are all like demons and aliens.
And it's kind of a thing that Bethesda
I guess they're all
does.
demons. Whereas these are like other people. I haven't seen like gore and I guess kind of dismemberment to this degree since Soldier of Fortune.
Okay.
Like years ago.
Right.
It's just not something that they really hit on anymore. So I thought that was kind of really cool. So I'm going to stop rambling on about gore and bullets. Those were my first impressions. JC, what was your first impression as you were looking at giant 80s computers trying to figure out how to move around?
So as I said, this is my first Wolfenstein game that I've actually like sat down and played other than the original one. And the first impressions of it were, other than the sound bug aside and being annoyed by that, reloading it fixed the problem, and we only had that like a couple of times.
Yeah, you had that once, and I had that. I experienced that once playing on my own. But again, a reload was generally all it needed to.
So the intro of the characters to me was very weak. I thought that the game probably would have taken place in occupied France to begin with instead of America, but I didn't have the context of the previous games.
I mean, for me, it taking part in liberated America.
Yeah, like I didn't even know that the main characters were the daughters of the main character of the previous game. So like
J. Blazkowicz.
Yeah, so like I'm very green whenever it comes to the series. I was mainly interested in playing the game because it sounded interesting and it was co-op, so that was the biggest things with me. First impressions, the controls were definitely very easy to control once I figured out what they were.
Yeah, they're pretty tight.
Yeah, like I understood some of them, but I was like just trying to figure out like how to crouch or how to do like the weapon switches and stuff like that because they reuse like holding the R1 button versus clicking the R1 button as a different action, for example.
Yes.
So I just need to know what those were. Once I figured out what that was, then it was just really right into the action. Past the first few guys who they're like take down silently, basically. But I really liked the aspects of how you had the two people and could basically do flanking tactics or advancement tactics where like one person would cover the fire one and then the other person would advance and then you keep on alternating and switching
Yeah, we had
and
a lot
then
of that,
watching your
especially in
six.
that first section, because the first, no spoilers, first area takes place in an airship.
Mm-hmm.
You would know that 30 seconds into the game.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of long corridors.
Yeah,
that
and the
run
game is kind of parallel, so you kind of have like two hallways to go down,
Yeah.
and then in the airship, they're connected basically with different rooms, and then sometimes there's a room on the side or something like that.
And it was really, there was a lot of cool situations where JC would be on, say, the left side and I would be moving down the right.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, maybe I had cleared out the dudes that were on my side.
Yeah.
And he was pinned down on the other side. And I would swing around.
Because the AI seemed to be intelligent enough to realize that they had like a better shot. Or they were taking like more fire from me or something, or like I was the target, so I could like distract the AI while you came in from the side, or vice versa, and then like finish them off with like a shotgun or something like that, or just some suppressing firepower was an option in the game, which was kind of cool because I find in first-person shooters that I've played anyway, the tactic of suppressing firepower is not really a thing.
No, not so much in shooters.
Yeah, we were doing that quite a bit actually, because they would hide behind objects and stuff like that.
Yep.
Like there was one scene near the beginning where there was, it was actually kind of difficult because of the number of people, but we were able to get past it by using the suppression of firepower because there's two people behind a desk basically. And you could shoot it up and stuff, and then there was people coming in from the left room and the right room. And I was taking so much firepower that I actually had to retreat and then go over towards you so that we could basically like cover each other's six and then make sure that like they're killing them while they're trying to flank us and stuff like that.
Yeah,
and
like
then,
we would each cover. Yeah, it was.
Yeah.
There was a lot of really fun circumstances of that.
Mm-hmm. And I was really enjoying how it kind of threw that option at you right away. And then as we got into like the different areas and stuff, then we were still able to do that for as well. So that was kind of like my first impressions of the game. I really enjoyed how that was kind of thrown in your face, and it kind of was teaching you how to like take a takedown and stuff like that. Because you basically go through the first mission and you pick up these laptops and they're teaching you different mechanics of the game. I found it very odd how there was a double jump, but you're in a super suit, so I guess that's why you can do a double jump.
Yeah, and you get the double jump in New Colossus.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
to me, the double jump wasn't a huge surprise.
Yeah, I figured there'd be a little bit less future tech than because the game takes place in 1980, so I figured there'd be less future tech than there actually is in the game, because there's like a super suit that makes like invisible camouflage and stuff like that. So I thought that was kind of like.
But again,
really
it's not knowing. It's with me knowing the storyline and all the.
But this would be probably my first reaction of like the original game of this company is made too. So I would have had the same thoughts. Is what I'm saying. If this was like 8 years ago and I was playing the first game or whatever.
Okay, well, what I'm saying is, like, for me, this has been a progression because they have kind of ramped up the future tech throughout the storyline. Because if you go all the way back to New Order, they didn't really have so much of the future tech at the beginning.
Okay.
There are things that...
So that got started to get introduced in the last, like, game or two?
It has, yeah, it's essentially been like a story element.
Right. Yeah.
That has brought this future tech into play.
Yeah. So yeah, that was my first impressions. But we should probably mention bugs because those are generally a big thing with new games. We've already mentioned one. There's a sound bug. Basically, the in-game sound and the sound effects don't work. And a reload fixes it. Or at least it did for us.
Yep.
We're playing on the PlayStation 4, by the way. There was an open doors bug where...
That one was really fun.
Yeah, I think it was because we tried to open the door at the same time, actually.
That might have been it, because
it happened a couple of times where like our arms were like completely down and then our legs were completely flat, and
I was trapped, hooked to the door.
Yeah,
but you were able to move around with your arms, like...
Yeah, I was like actually connected to the door, but I was able to like move around, and my legs were like flat, and I was just like sliding all over the place, and it was kind of funny. Yeah, so those are really the only two. There was that I noticed anyway. If there was any other bugs, then they were very, very minor and they weren't overly noticeable, or at least we didn't come up to them.
No, which is
Hmm
it's nice to see something released not broken.
Yeah, yeah, it was a fairly complete game, which was kind of nice. Let's go into the core of the mechanics and the different aspects of the actual gameplay. Since we've gone over our first impressions and sort of what the game was about. One thing is its genre was really interesting to me because if I understand correctly, this is the first Wolfenstein game with like loot shooter mechanics in it.
Yeah, this was a lot more loot loot-y.
Yeah, and it's not a loot shooter, but it's more of a loot shooter, first person shooter adventure game. So it, from what I like, there's not random drops and stuff like that.
Yeah, there's no
They're dropping their actual weapons and stuff like that,
you
but
get
like,
you get some ammo and
mhm,
sometimes like armor pieces.
yeah, but you can level up your attributes and your guns, and there's health bars over monster or enemies, and some of them are very bullet spongy depending on the level of your equipment and stuff like that. I just felt that a lot of aspects of the loot shooter genre was kind of like intertwined with its core first person shooter genre,
It
and
it did have
yeah.
a lot of the like loot aspect.
Hmm
Because you are trying to find all these you're trying to find silver coins
Yep.
because you use those to pay for your upgrades.
hmm
For your weapons, you can also buy some cosmetic
Yeah, and
items with them as
sometimes
well.
a guy will drop them, or they'll be like on a desk, or like there's a lot of crates all over the place if you do some exploring, and you can open them up and they'll have like 50 or 100 coins or something like that.
Yep.
Yeah, and they seem to be in set locations though. They might be slightly random, but yeah. So it's kind of interesting because like um, also another aspect of the enemies, they have targeted zones that you can attack.
Yeah,
So
which can make it a little less bullet spongy.
hmm
The first time we encountered one of the like cyber dogs,
hmm
I can't remember what they're called, but like Mecha Hund maybe.
Yeah.
Something that sounds slightly German.
hmm
Um, it it took us forever to take it down. We were
Yeah.
like throwing grenades and like
Yeah, I think I threw
just
like all three of my grenades at the
yeah.
hound, and it didn't die, and I was like, holy crap, like this thing's a beast. And
But I
fought it later.
and it was I moved around because it actually has targeted zones on its sides.
Right.
And I had it down in like a handful of shotgun shells. Like it was like nothing.
Yeah.
So it's some of it is learning how to take down the enemies
Right.
and
Especially
the
like the diesel guys too,
yep.
because they're very tough. But if one person distracts them and then the other person flanks them, they've got their tanks on the back of them, and if you shoot them off,
Yeah,
then
you
their
can
armor
blow up the
starts falling off.
tanks.
Yeah, and their armor falls off and stuff like that, and then they're fairly easy to kill because without leveling up your ability, you can't actually melee a guy and kill him without a high enough ability. So
Yes.
yeah, yeah, which was something that I was leveling up because I found myself kind of like frontlining a lot and just trying to knife people because I thought
Yeah,
it was a cool mechanic.
very very early into the game I figured out that I could upgrade my weapon.
Yeah.
So I upgraded the rifle
hmm
and I threw everything into damage. I went like full ham
yeah.
on damage. So
hmm
I'm hanging back, just like focus fire on the head,
Yeah.
which again, a couple shots it like pops off their face plates,
hmm
and then you're putting shots straight into them,
Yeah.
and they go down a lot quicker.
Yeah, because you have a lot of enemies, then they all kind of have like 5 or 6 versions of them, and
Yeah,
you'll see like Soldat 2, for example, and he'll have some body armor, and Soldat 3 has like a helmet, for example.
and
Yeah.
then there's like like super soldiers,
hmm
and you've got the like I want to say Panzerhund.
I think that's what he was
I think
called.
that's
Yeah.
what it is.
Yeah.
And then you've got these like huge dudes that have the like the heavy weapons.
Yeah.
Oh, and then you've got like you do have huge mechs
Yep.
as well that are
hmm
very threatening.
Yeah, and also there's a leader unit called the Commandant, and he seems to give a area of effect bonus or something
Yeah,
to.
he if you kill him before reinforcements are called,
Yeah.
then you'll just get normal like
lower
kind of like
tiered guys.
similar level to you
Mm-hmm.
enemies called in. Whereas if he's still alive, it boosts it up by like 1 or 2.
Right, and he can continually call on people sometimes too, right? Because
Yeah.
I remember there was one place where there was one on a balcony, and we didn't notice him, and he kept on calling in people, and we're like, why do they keep on coming? I'm like, oh, there's guys up here on the balcony. So then we just concentrated our fire up there, and one of them was a commandant, and whenever we killed him, then like less of them were coming in and stuff like that.
And there's also like T100s
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
that are super creepy.
Yeah.
They just like they keep charging at you. I find the like human opponents
Mm-hmm.
when they start taking damage,
Yeah.
they'll kind of back off a little bit.
Yep.
Not the robots.
Yeah.
Robots are straight into you, guns ablazing,
Mm-hmm.
tearing at you with their dead robot eyes.
Yep.
Just nonstop.
Yeah.
But no, the like so to kind of double back a little bit, the upgrade mechanics,
Mhm.
I found them actually really interesting. To me, it was like a little like a lot like Far Cry.
Right.
You had very similar things because you had upgrade points to upgrade. Like every time you leveled up, you would get like an upgrade point to
Mhm.
put into abilities, or which could be like additional armor, additional
Yeah.
health.
Yeah, I felt it was much like the new Tomb Raider games where you could upgrade certain aspects of your character and then you could upgrade your weapon in certain aspects as
Yeah.
well.
You have like 3 main, I guess, trees.
Mhm.
You had the like power, mind, and
It's like health or something.
something. There's a third one that I totally forgot.
Mhm.
And yeah, the like one of them is more like action based. The other one is a little bit more like health and um collection based.
Mhm.
And then your third one is just your abilities.
Yeah.
So it has your like there's a stealth ability, there's a the charge
So-
ability. You kind of the way you get your points, you sort of have to pick,
Mhm.
and you got to specialize a little bit, because if you're just throwing points randomly into stuff, you're not going to get the benefit.
Yeah.
And again, like it to me, this was very much like Far Cry,
Mhm.
because if you want to get the benefit of like, I really want this tree,
Mhm.
you've got to focus on that.
Yeah.
But again, this is just, it's a little bit more streamlined and
Yeah,
a little
it's
bit
just
more
a line,
simplified.
basically.
Yeah. Yeah, this was not as complicated as the Far Cry games.
Mhm.
It was nice because it still kind of scratched that itch for me,
Right.
but it wasn't as intense.
Yeah, and I enjoyed it because I really like those types of mechanics in games like the Tomb Raider games and like different loot shooters and stuff like that. And having that in this game actually like gave something like RPG like and
Yeah.
mechanical from games that I like. So I
And-
really enjoyed it.
And you had like your weapon has 3 separate upgrades.
Mhm.
One that does play to a little bit more stealth.
Hmm.
And accuracy. The other one that plays a little bit more to I want to say DPS,
Right.
because it's more like rapid fire.
Mhm.
And then you've got your like straight damage.
Mhm.
You might not shoot as fast, but
yeah, and you can
bullets do a
upgrade each
boatload
of
of
your
damage.
different sections of your gun to go towards those different aspects of the types of damage that you
yeah,
do.
each you have 5 sections on your gun.
Yep.
And if you put at least 3
Mhm.
into the same one, you get an additional bonus.
If they're the same
If you
company.
put 3 into the same company.
Yeah.
Which again, always damage, because damage. And I got an extra 10% bonus on top of that.
Right.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun, and it changes the look of the weapon too,
Yeah.
which to me is a huge bonus, right? Like
Mhm.
it's not just like, oh, it's a slightly better, like my gun does slightly better now.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah, because
if you change the barrel, the barrel's totally different.
yeah, each of the company's barrels look different.
Yeah, and you've got like
And same with the different sections of the gun. So.
it's fantastic.
Mhm. But yeah, I guess with that, with the cosmetics aspect of it, we should probably talk about like the minor microtransactions that this game has.
Yeah.
So there's microtransactions for cosmetic stuff, which is basically skins for yourself and your weapons. And you can buy in-game currency to get those. And you can also buy silver which is what Ian explained before, which you use to upgrade your weapons. But like really, you can just play the game, and if you explore each of the levels, like you by the time 20-ish,
I
maybe
hadn't even
20.
hit level 20, and I had all of like I had five.
Mm-hmm.
Well, yeah, all of my weapons were upgraded as
Yeah.
many times as they could be.
So unless you really wanted to like powerhouse through the entire game, then there's really no point because your normal progression is going to get you through the game. I don't
Yeah,
really see why you would buy the silver,
yeah,
which is kind of nice because the option is there for the people who are going to do that. But like as a player who's not going to do that myself, I didn't feel as if they were trying to abuse its own in-game mechanics to force me to buy anything. So
no, I mean they all of the upgrades
yeah.
that you could pay for with the gold bars,
Mm-hmm.
which are what you purchase.
Yeah.
Um, they were to me it seemed all cosmetic,
Yeah.
and like JC was saying, there's no need for it. Like
Mm-hmm.
I believe like we both got the like deluxe edition.
Yep.
Um,
So we got some sort of like cyber pilot like.
yeah, we did get like an additional skin.
Mm-hmm.
For like we had a skin for each of the weapons,
Yep.
and we had a skin for your like armor,
Yep.
your power armor,
Mm-hmm.
and yeah, I mean I switched to it
Mm-hmm.
because I had it. If I didn't have it, I probably wouldn't have switched. I mean, the base suit looks pretty cool, anyways.
Yeah, and you don't see yourself anyway because it's first-person shooter. You only see the other person, so yeah,
You get the like
the cutscenes
you
and
get like the
stuff.
paper
But
doll too when you open up the like your journal
that is true.
to like flick to your stats and
Yep.
that. But and in the
Hmm.
cutscenes and that. But
But it's not something like Anthem where you actually see yourself.
no, and there's like a handful of cinematics too.
Hmm.
Like there's not a lot.
Yeah, but one thing that I would like to mention, since we mentioned Anthem, this game had way more skins than Anthem on day one, and I paid less for this game. But that's all I like to say about that. So thank you, Bethesda. But moving on, let's talk about kind of the aesthetic of the game for a moment.
Yeah.
So, I thought it was actually kind of well portrayed.
Yeah.
The levels look because you're in occupied France, and the levels look and feel like they should. I felt that even like liberated America and the very brief like two scenes that you're in that
Yep.
area, it felt like it was kind of like uh reminiscent, kind of like country home and stuff like that area where they're kind of out in the middle of nowhere living their lives and stuff like that
Yeah, and
before they
like
go off on their.
like style wise,
Mhm.
everybody looked very 80s.
Yes, yeah, because there's a lot of advertisements for like floppy diskettes and stuff like that, and like a
Yes.
VHS store we saw. And we're like, oh my god, look, it's a VHS store, and look, it's a computer place, and like you can like shoot the glass and the computers and stuff like that. It's pretty cool.
And there's collectibles that are
Mhm.
VHS tapes.
Yeah,
That like you can look at them
and they're all parodies of movies.
and then there's also cassette tapes that you can find
Hmm.
that some of them are like just recorded messages,
Yeah,
but some of them are like German parodies of actual 80s songs.
Yeah.
Or maybe those are actual German songs from the 80s that just sound like other songs that I've heard before.
yeah.
I don't know that. I can't confirm or deny, but I heard I know I listened to a few of them and I was like, I swear I've heard the song before, but in English, like for
Yeah.
sure in English.
Hmm. Yeah, it was kind of neat how they portrayed that aesthetic because even like the bad guys fit the part, and the liberation army that you work with in the catacombs, which is the hub world of it, which we'll get into in a moment. They definitely like felt like they were partisans and stuff like that, which is
But
kind of cool.
also the catacombs too.
Hmm.
Like it looks like you've got bones up on like the
Yeah.
bones and skulls and stuff all over the place.
Mhm.
Like it does look
Just like the catacombs in
yeah.
France. Yeah.
It has a like it's a little creepy,
Hmm.
but it's also kind of warm, which is really weird.
Right. Yeah, and they've got like all these computers and stuff like that. It's like
and 80s
I-
computers too.
yeah,
like
it's kind of like if you played Alien Isolation, how they kept like the alien 80s tech in the future,
yeah.
like that game, and they
Well, that was like 70s tech.
it was like no, it's like like late 70s, early 80s tech, but future like late 70s and 80s tech. It's kind of like, but it's kind of like that game where they took the time to basically make it look and feel the part,
Yeah.
and it actually go to like its source material, and like a lot of the buildings and stuff like that for the bad guys are like Art Deco, which is very reminiscent of like the of the time and stuff like that
Yeah.
from like around World War II and just previous to it and stuff like that, which is kind of cool because like there's a couple parts where like I just stopped and looked at the building. I'm like, hey, this is Art Deco. That's really neat. Like how they're still like using the Art Deco style because I feel like in an alternate timeline where the bad guys from World War II won, they would have used those types of buildings and stuff like that.
Well, yeah, because that was very much the like
Mm-hmm.
the aesthetic.
Yeah, yeah,
Um,
but definitely really really cool. Yeah.
and I mean, a small mention to the music. It doesn't it doesn't really stand center stage too much,
Yeah, I didn't really notice it as much. It was more ambient.
but you can for sure pick up the like the retro wave in the
Mm-hmm.
background,
Yeah.
which I did enjoy. I
Mm-hmm.
really enjoyed that anytime I heard the music playing in the background, that it was, very synth heavy retro wave, which to be fair is not 80s at all, but it feels 80s.
Yeah, it's definitely 80s influenced.
So,
Yeah. But let's talk about the hub world, which you alluded to, which is the catacombs and kind of how the game map works, sort of. So basically, you start off in your mission, and eventually you make it to the catacombs of France, which is a hub world. And the hub world is kind of like where a resistance group is situated, and you do your missions from there. Because each area has like a main mission, and then there's some sub missions that you can get from some of the NPCs and stuff like that. And then you go to a map board, and then you can go to the different sections of it, and then select what mission you want to do,
yeah,
basically.
you basically travel through the Paris
Mm-hmm.
underground
Yeah,
to get to each section. And
which
what
is
what I found really interesting too was that they had multiple underground sections
mm-hmm.
in each map. So even though, you might start say here
Right.
or here,
Mm-hmm.
you could find an underground exit point over here
Right.
as well. So you've got multiple either like access points or exit points from the map.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I thought that was kind of neat just as a place. Now granted, you don't to leave the map sections every time, you don't have to go all the way back. You
Right.
can just hold down square
Okay.
and kind of throw up a, if you're with a person, it'll prompt them and say, player wants to return
Mm-hmm.
to the catacombs. You can deny, obviously, but
Right.
yeah, when you're by yourself, you just hold that down as long as there's no enemies around, and it'll
Mm-hmm.
pull you back. I kind of thought that was interesting
Yeah.
that it gives you multiple access points to your levels, which
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's kind of realistic because you're gonna have multiple access points to these streets and alleyways.
Yeah, for sure. The neat thing about that is that the actual areas are kind of designed in that way too, with the multiple access points, because
Yeah.
a lot of the time there's more than one way to actually like tackle a problem, because a lot of it's not just a linear line for the most part of
No.
how to get to somewhere. There's a lot of buildings that kind of like interconnect a lot of the main like hallways of the game basically, and you can make it so that you like one person comes in from the side and flanks, or maybe you both come in from the side where like the AI is not necessarily expecting you, so you kind of get like a jump on them and stuff like that, which is a pretty interesting way to allow the player to complete the level. Because were the older games like that too, or
Not as much.
mm-hmm. Because
They
I think
were.
like with this game having a little bit more of a loot shooter influence, a lot of the levels are kind of like designed in the same aesthetic as well, where you
Yeah.
did have like a little bit of more open area to explore, which
Now,
is kind of cool.
I will say I did get the impression that each area,
Mm-hmm.
even though it was open and it was bigger,
Right.
you had these unique zones within each one.
Mm-hmm.
So, you would have like various access points and entryways throughout these zones,
Yeah.
but they did feel very distinct.
Yep.
Generally, you would have some kind of like, there'd be a concrete barrier or
Right.
maybe like a checkpoint.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there was quite a bit of checkpoints dividing each of the different areas as well.
But again, that kind of makes sense because you are in an occupied territory, and
Yeah.
they would probably have checkpoints
Especially
scattered
since
throughout the
there's a
city.
resistance underneath the city
Yeah.
and that is trying to fight back against the bad guys. So yeah, or the
But
occupiers.
it was really interesting, and like JC was saying, there was several instances where we would get pinned down, or like
Mm-hmm.
JC would be like, I'm stuck,
You're right.
and you could go through, like, you could find entryways through an apartment,
Yeah.
like you could jump through a window and get over to him.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, sometimes I jump through a window and put myself in worse danger.
Yeah, because sometimes the side areas, like I recall a couple times where we went into a side area and all of a sudden we're just overwhelmed with bad guys and it's like, where the heck did you go? And I'm trying to figure out on the mini map and you're like, I'm under fire, help. I'm just like, well, where'd you go?
There's one section that is like, it's like an apartment block for like high-ranking officers, and I jumped through the window thinking like, oh sweet, it's a window, maybe there's some stuff in here, and I start running upstairs.
Yeah, because some of them are like really small areas where it's just like a couple of rooms and like maybe there'll be a chest in there or something like that with some silver, or it'll be like an entire apartment complex.
And it was an entire apartment complex that even had like its own courtyard in the center. And JC's was just like, "Where are you?" And I'm like, "I'm under fire." But actually, on that point though, of being under fire, the live system, because that's kind of an important mechanic that we had not touched on yet.
Right.
You only have 3 lives,
Oh yeah.
which are shared between the 2 of you.
And yeah,
So
if you you can get more of them, but the only way to get more of them is by opening up these chests that require both the characters to open up.
the shared life chests,
Yeah.
which they look just like the silver chests, except
little- I
with
think
2
they're-
handles on the
I
side.
think the color of them is a little bit different on their outlining.
It's slightly different,
Yeah,
but
the main chest itself is the same, like gray white. So
they're
yeah.
very similar in shape. Just they have 2 handles on the outsides instead of
one,
0 handles. But no, I found that was really interesting, especially that it was 3 lives for 2 of you.
Right.
It really limits the amount of mistakes that you can make, and you do have to stay at least close enough that you can get to the other person. Now, I did find that they were really generous with the downtime.
Yeah, because you have enough. There's a certain few instances where one of us would go down, and there'd be so much fire that the other person wouldn't be able to get to the person. But
Yeah.
you'd have enough time to crawl out, basically, and the bad guys can't do anything to you whenever you're down. Like they can't overly hurt you and just kill you.
Yeah, they can't kill you more.
Yeah, so you're crawling like down a hallway and then around a corner or something like that, away from the fire, so that you can basically revive your ally, and then you have the option to be able to do that, which is really cool.
The revival's pretty quick.
Yeah, it's only about like maybe like what 5-10 seconds or something.
Yeah, it's like I would say probably on the closer to 5 seconds. Like it was very much like done.
Yeah.
And then you can learn, like, take abilities to come back with more health.
Yeah.
Like initially you only come back with like very little. But you can get more perks that let you come back with more health and armor.
Yep.
But on top of that, you also have these like boosts that you have access to. Which you do like a movement. So it might be like a thumbs up or like Metal Horns. I did the robot. Which was sweet because I would like do the robot and we would both gain 100 armor.
Yeah.
Which, great. Like it was,
Yeah,
it saved
useful.
us so many times. And then you had, I think you had the health.
Yeah.
It was like a instant 50 health for both of us.
Yeah.
Which again, with that one, it would overfill you.
Yeah.
As well. So even if
I think it'll take you to 125. I think that might have been the cap.
But it was, it would go up to that. It would tick down. But you would get this like health buffer as well.
Yep.
So they give you these really cool little perks that kind of help you go through the game. And I know I used the armor a ton.
Yeah.
Like pretty much any time one of us went down, as soon as they came back up, it's like, meh, meh, meh.
Yeah.
And you do see I would see the hands every time do the like.
Yeah, and I guess another gameplay mechanic is that all the loot in the game is instanced to yourself. So if we were both
Yeah.
playing, I would be like, they a lot of the items would be similar for their placement. Like if there was a helmet which would give you armor, like you would see the helmet in the same area, but I would pick it up and it would still be there for you.
Yes.
And you
Or
wouldn't.
like it would be now the collectibles were all identical.
Yes. Yeah.
It would be I think my favorite was like come and look at this boar head, and there's these like 3D glasses on this like boar head mounted
Yeah.
up on the wall.
Yeah.
But there would be times where you'd be like, oh, there's like an armor vest over here,
Hmm.
and I would go over and it'd be like a health pack,
Oh, okay.
or
Hmm.
maybe it would just be like a stack of silver coins.
Yeah.
There'd always be something there, just
Hmm.
not necessarily the same thing.
Yeah, because there'd be little caches everywhere, and be like, I found a little cache, and like, get over here, and I would pick it all up, and then you could do the same thing, and you wouldn't have to like decide, okay, well, I'll leave the health pack for you, or you'll leave the armor for you, because we were playing as if that was
Yeah,
what the thing was.
that's
And
what we were
then,
doing at first.
yeah, and then you told me, oh, there's nothing over here. I picked everything, and then I happened to walk by there, and I'm like, there's still stuff here. And you're like, no, there's not. I'm like, oh, is it instance? And then we were like, oh, okay, come over here. Do you see this? Yes. I picked it up. Do you still see it? Yeah. Okay, cool.
That I think my favorite was the first time you were like, "Do you see this?" And I was like, "No, I see this." You're like, "Oh."
But once we figured it out, we were golden.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
it's nice. I love it when games do that because then you don't feel like you have to share.
Hmm.
And it's not that I don't want to share, and it's not that I don't know how to share.
Hmm.
It slows the pacing down.
Yeah, and I think like a Wolfenstein game, if the pacing is like too slow, then it'd be kind of annoying. So.
Like even the crouch mechanic,
Hmm.
if you're running, you'll slide. And like little things like that. I know it's a very minor thing, but to me that keeps the tempo up.
Hmm.
Whereas like any other thing where you're like running and now I want to crouch, you just
Right.
like "Rah,"
Hmm.
and start like crouch walking.
Yeah.
It really like pulls you out.
Yep.
This I found I could stay at 11.
Hmm.
Now granted, when combat's done, it's like when you clear out that area, it's cleared out as kind of I sort of figured out it clears as long as you stay there,
Yeah.
and then if you move away for like 5 minutes and to one of the other zones, if you come back,
Yeah, a couple guys might come back.
yeah, guys will respawn and you'll get more guys. If you're gone for longer, it'll just fully repopulate.
Right.
It was a little weird that there was zero like civilians,
I did find that weird too.
because some of the apartment blocks in that felt very empty.
Yeah, you would have thought that there would have been citizens kind of like cowering or around, or maybe even like a partisan just like randomly in the crowd, and then they start helping you or something like that, and then the bad
Yeah.
guys like shoot them down or something, and then that you can use that distraction to your advantage, but that doesn't happen. So.
Yeah, it's very. But then again, you don't have any awkward situations where you shoot a civilian,
Hmm.
because that would be
That'd be very
incredibly awkward.
Yeah.
But I mean, that was kind of the only like super weird thing that I found mechanics wise, like
Mhm.
going through the zones. Like sometimes they felt super empty.
Yeah.
But then again, I mean, I've spent zero time in an active war zone,
Right.
so I don't know. I'm
But
sure
like even
wandering
in the
through.
active war zone at the beginning of the Tomb Raider game, there's still people like walking and avoiding like the gunfire and stuff like that. There's still people, and they've already occupied France. So
Yeah, like
like
France has been occupied for like 40 years.
yeah. So you'd think that there'd be people around. So
Yeah, I guess you would kind of expect people to be going a little bit more about their day to day
hmm
if it's been 40 years of being occupied.
yeah, especially since they have storefronts and advertisements for all this other stuff. Like who are they advertising to? Who are they selling stuff to?
I mean the soldiers.
I guess.
That's my
Yeah.
that's my assumption, because all of the ads are all in German.
That's true. But
None of them were in French.
But after 40 years, do you think that the main language would have been forced in
I-
the school system?
Also true.
Right,
That's a
so-
good point.
But let's get into our final thoughts. So what were your final thoughts on the game, Ian?
I the story, the overall story, I
Mhm.
should say, um, I enjoyed. Um, yeah, they're a little cringy, but at the same time, I got used to them, and I'm like, yeah, these guys are they're just dorks,
Mhm.
you know, and they were they were always dorks, but they grew up in a very like militarized fashion,
Right.
um, and weren't overly socialized. So I kind of accepted them for the giant dorks that they are,
Fair enough.
even though they are kind of cringy at times.
Mhm.
Um, I I'm excited for where I think they're going to go.
Okay.
Um, the To me, this felt like a even though it's had tons of hype and tons of marketing behind it, it felt more like the Old Blood,
Okay.
which was actually for a while it was only DLC, and then they released a physical version of it. But
Mhm.
um, yeah, it's a smaller story.
Mhm.
Yeah, again, even though you're looking at a good like 15, 20 hours worth of gameplay,
Right.
which um, you could even stretch out longer if you want to try to find all the collectibles and
Yeah.
um,
That option is there for you.
you or play through it with a friend too,
Mhm.
or a couple friends, who knows. Um, yeah, it felt more like I guess an expansion.
Okay.
That's what I'm trying to say. It feels more like an expansion to New Colossus.
Okay.
So I'm imagining that the next one will be like a full. Now again, this was a $40 game,
Right.
so that, I mean, to me that's a bit of a caveat. It was only $40. Um, I'm not expecting it to be this isn't like the third installment to me. This isn't like the official game 3
It's a
in.
side game, is what you're saying.
Yeah,
Mhm.
this is a little side story in the Machine Games Wolfenstein story arc.
Mhm.
So I'm excited to see where they're going to go,
Yep.
because they set up for a very interesting options. You've got two really cool options at the end, which they could explore. Either of them, I would be totally down to go either way.
Cool.
Ideally, it would be really cool to see kind of like two swapping back and forth,
Okay.
and then maybe intersecting a little bit, kind of like the Modern Warfare, how it had like two separate storylines that were kind of happening at the same time, and then eventually they converge. You didn't play Modern Warfare, that's okay. I don't know.
They might have.
Life is Strange. I don't know. Telltale. I'm just throwing things out here. I'm diverging storylines.
Yeah.
Um,
I get what you're saying. You didn't have to go into a huge.
I did. Yeah. I mean, gameplay was fun.
Mhm.
It delivered on what I was hoping
Okay.
for, like an action-based shooter. The looting and the leveling mechanics were, I guess, kind of a surprise,
Mhm.
because I didn't know that that was going to be in there. They didn't really market it, but I had fun with it, so it wasn't a complaint
Mhm.
here. And the microtransactions, I didn't even,
Need.
yeah, didn't even feel it. Not gonna get my money,
Hmm.
or you already got my money, so you're not gonna get more of my money until you release Wolfenstein 3. But yeah, no, honestly, I had fun with it. It's I don't know. I guess I'd give it like a Far Cry New Dawn out of Generation Zero.
Okay.
I don't know. What are your final thoughts, JC?
So I really enjoyed how there was a co-op option. That's what enticed me to actually play the game. And I enjoyed the mechanics. I did like how there was a lot of really great aesthetic to the game and different options. I think it was just like more along the lines of the linearity of Doom. I probably wouldn't have liked it as much.
Yeah.
So that was I really like the new Doom games, but I think as like the story idea that they're going with, I would have enjoyed something different, which this is, so that's cool.
It's kind of funny that you mentioned that because that's sort of what I was expecting when I picked this up.
Mm-hmm.
I kind of thought this was going to be like an 8 to 10 hour like just full throttle
Mm-hmm.
just like triggers down running through this crazy like nonstop gunfire campaign where
Right.
it was not quite that. I was really happy. Like it was
Mm-hmm.
a really pleasant surprise.
Yeah, and that's kind of like what I enjoyed about it as well. What I found really surprising about the game was the hub world, and you don't see that too often in games, and I quite enjoyed it. I thought it was really cool because like you were saying, each of the different areas have a different aesthetic, and the levels themselves were a little bit more open, and it was just kind of refreshing to me
Yeah.
because my perception of first-person shooters is very formulaic, and it wasn't as formulaic as the first-person shooters that I've played, so I quite enjoyed that. So as a fan of first-person shooters, but not the like preliminary fan. Like that's not the first genre that I'm always playing. It definitely was an interesting game to sit down and play. So yeah, I definitely enjoyed most of the time with it. I'm sure that some other people had the bugs and they'll fix them. And I really enjoyed how there wasn't as many bugs as some of the games that I've played near launch because like we played it the night it came out.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, we picked it up
yeah.
immediately and no issues. And as a side note, if you bought the deluxe edition, which I think was probably the one that was predominantly available, I think I didn't see too many of the standard edition.
Mm-hmm.
I know they exist, but
Yeah.
so we paid the 55 instead of the 40
Mhm.
Canadian. Um, it comes with like a buddy pass.
Yeah, so
If someone has the trial version of the game,
mhm.
you can invite them to your game and then they can play through it fully with you.
Yeah, which is I found really really interesting because that kind of like I guess potentially either limits their amount of revenue or doubles the amount of players depending on how you look at it.
I mean,
Because
that to me that's a huge thing. Like
mm-hmm.
that's that's them saying that we want people to play it.
Yep,
You know, and we want them to play it co-op.
right.
Um and
Yeah,
yeah,
because
like
I don't think the game would be as fun if you play it single player.
it isn't. I did
Yeah.
play some. I played for probably about an hour on my own
Mm-hmm.
because it just wasn't fun. The most fun that I had was definitely playing with JC.
Cool, cool.
So I look forward to jumping back into it.
Yeah, for sure. Me too. So those are our final thoughts on the game. Overall, not too bad. Enjoying the gameplay.
Yep.
Haven't fully finished it yet, but
We'll get you there.
yep, we'll get there. And yeah, so Wolfenstein first experience not that bad.
Have you played the new Wolfenstein game? Or are you thinking about playing it? Let us know what you guys think down in the comments. And we will see you next Wednesday.
See you next week.